Hello, and welcome back to the Making Spirituality Real podcast. Last episode was kind of more of an introductory comment on the reasons for creating that podcast, and thank you so much to those who are encouraging. For those of you who don't know, I'm also trying to start a Facebook group where we could have weekly video group chats, or where we could have discussions. Where we could have discussions about, topics relative to my expertise. So spirituality, astrology, tarot, human design, psychology. But also, really, I want to make it a space for people to suggest what interests them. Naturally, I have my own ideas, but I kind of put them more out there already on my socials. And in the group, I kind of would like to give space to people to ask what really is needed for them. You don't even need to friend me on Facebook to join that group. All you have to do is click on the link. I'll put the invite link in the description of this video. It's basically a Facebook Messenger group because Facebook Messenger offers unlimited free video calls for groups and makes you pay for it. So I know it's not much, but for starters, it's a decent place to start, start a certain initiative. I used to participate in groups of many other people in the past, especially in the last year. I have become more social in that department, but I have had a lot of suggestions that I should have my own space in that regard because there are just too many people that want to say different things, and I have too many things to say at the same time, and I think that it's more compatible with my gifts and everyone's best interest for me to have my own space where I can give information, make my own presentation, and cater to people on my own terms. And whoever wants to frequent will frequent whatever group they want to. And I would like to thank everyone because there are so many people who suggested both the podcast and the group to encourage me. Because while I'm good at studying and developing myself internally, I am worse at bringing it outward and actually sharing and engaging people to participate in such situations. So thank you to all of you who have pushed me to take that step and break away from the awkwardness and actually trying to socialize. Because what is the use for my gifts if they're not brought to people, right? So while in the last episode, even though it's an introduction, don't miss it because there's some information about the nature of my practice and why I named it Making Spirituality Real and why it describes how I view the universe and the energies of what I guess you can call God or creative force as a very real, tangible dimension of our existence. It was more of a brief remark on how that works and how I feel about it and why. Here I would like to talk more in what I guess will be the first episode of the actual information sharing on the podcast. And I want to talk about my understanding of higher energies. I am sure that many of you who already listened to this are interested in the subject, so you will not be surprised by hearing about the principle of as above, so below, because it just has become such a cliche even in recently with spirituality being on the rise on social media, which is a good thing naturally, but with that also comes a lot of false information, and kind of would like to clarify how that actually works and the implications of it, which I feel like people are not aware of at all. It's like they understand the slogan, but they don't really feel what it means and the consequences that it brings and how it should change your perception of life. So in reality, that the knowledge is very physical, even biological in the way that we should perceive the world. What that means is that there's a certain scale in this universe, and the only element of it that dictates your perception is your position in that scale. Now, what does that mean? There's an infinite stretch of organisms and life forms of different size, from one-cell organisms to very large energetic entities, which I'll touch on later. And all that is going to matter at the end of the day is your position within the I don't know if you should call it hierarchy, because it's not really, someone being better than other, but just different in nature. What you perceive as larger and more incomprehensible than yourself, or smaller, as in totally perceivable and totally controllable. Like, think of us human beings. Technically, we are built on the same principle as smaller organisms because, again, as above, so below, right? Nature, as that we are part of, is equally creating small insects and larger human beings, and then larger beings like elephants, which technically, are physically bigger than human beings. Also very intelligent animals. Some would say that they actually can exceed human intelligence with their perception, their sensitivity, and their high level of empathy. And what happens is that on this scale, for us, a human being, the perception of an insect is going to be easy, right? For us, it's easy to intellectually grasp an insect because it's so small compared to us, right? We just happen to be right now in a body that is bigger than the physical form of the insect. But for you to really understand how higher dimensional entities work, or higher energies, think about, what if I was the insect and there was someone from the perspective of a human looking at me instead? And that is exactly how the whole principle of what people call angels or spirit guides or even deities works, is that human beings have this egotic notion that I always found to be ridiculous and unrealistic, that life begins and ends with them, and that we are the measuring stick for everything within this universe. That is absolutely preposterous. We are just part of an infinite cosmic harmony. And while, of course, your soul has chosen this human incarnation, and you should, appreciate and enjoy your human life, you should be aware of your position within the universe as just one of many beings. That's also why I like the approach of Vedic astrology, because these people, they have a very good, clear vision of that fact. Some of them are actually even become too submissive as a result, because think about it, just because a smaller animal is aware that a human is bigger than it doesn't mean that the animal should crawl and pray to the human being. No, not at all. We all should be comfortable in our existence regardless of the form that we take. We are all just doing our best with whatever incarnations our souls have chosen right now. But it's more about perception and more about perspective and consciousness, that while there are microorganisms that you have to look at under a microscope that you may not be aware of until you use a machine to actually examine them, it also works the exact same way on the opposite spectrum. We look into the outer space and we think, oh, there's nothing there, just vacuum, blackness, and there may be some planets in the distance, but there's no life on them. The truth is that, first of all, we don't know if the information given to us is correct. If there was life on other planets, would we even be told the truth? I'm skeptical about that. Misinformation is a common way to control the public, let's face it. But even if actually, people just have not discovered anything because our machines have not proven to be proficient enough to be able to detect life over there, that does not mean that there isn't life there functioning on higher dimensional principles. To give you an example, I will quote you a brief piece of information from the school of thought of the law of one. The law of one actually, according to what is being said about it, was transmitted by beings that originate from the planet Venus. From our perspective, Venus is a fiery planet, it's a hot planet, so we think that there is no life there. Because our human life, again, the perspective of thinking that we are the reference point for the whole universe, and we can see everything when we only see a fragment from our point of view. But in fact, according to the law of one, planet Venus is inhabited by a 5-dimensional consciousness that calls itself Ra, where over time, the time is not specified, honestly, it could be millions of years, planet Venus has achieved a higher level of evolution, and as a result, the 3rd-dimensional physical level that we perceive with our human eyes has combusted, which thus the burn, and all the beings there exist in perfect harmony in 5-dimensional forms. That means that our human eyes cannot perceive what is happening there, but there is life, and it's a hive mind consciousness that calls itself Ra existing on planet Venus. if you want to find more information about the law of one, just look it up on YouTube. God, there's I think there are like whole channels talking about it. I just gave you the the very quick summary just to illustrate my example. I used to spend hours learning about the law of one from other creators. So this is just me giving you a summary so that you can really get into the idea. If you want to learn more, just look it up on YouTube, and there are whole channels talking about details of how the details of how that works. But essentially, what that shows us is that we actually have no idea what is going on when it comes to extraterrestrial or external life relative to our human perspective, the same way that I don't think an ant is aware of our human pursuits and our ambitions and desires. An ant is just trying to make it to the ant hills, trying to take care of its offspring. It has its own small life. Small doesn't mean bad, by the way. It's just what it is. It has its own small perspective when it's occupied by its own affairs, the same way that we are preoccupied by our families, our jobs, and things like that. And those of us who actually concern ourselves with deeper topics, more spiritual topics, we are considered often outcasts or weirdos. And if we don't participate in the collective madness of chasing these human goals, whoa, good luck with that kind of life. Although some of us don't really have the choice. And yet still, even those of us who are considered the most spiritual and the most advanced in those deeper subjects, we are merely seeing the tip of the iceberg of something that I'm pretty sure is completely obvious to beings of higher dimensional nature. Probably, they could even look at us and laugh at us and say, oh, wow, this one has awakened one tiny brain cell to actually have some sort of perception of life. Good luck, The sad part is that the nature of our genetic disposition in our physical bodies limits us because, well, there's only so much we can do in a human body relative to a higher dimensional perception. First of all, again, okay, we can kind of dissociate and sink in, but still, we are not able to transcend fully the limitation of who we are in this incarnation. Again, think of an ant trying to be very awakened and suddenly becoming a professor. It's just not going to happen, right? It can't speak. It doesn't have the physical tools in its body to have a level of perception and awareness. It's not against it, but it just can't help it. And honestly, it's the same with us. In a way, you can say that as human beings, in the perspective of cosmos, we are very lame spiritually, like we do our best, but we really are. And again, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. It just means that we have a certain place, a certain functioning within our human form. And I think that what I would like is to break a barrier of thinking that this is where the universe ends, and show people who are looking for information about higher dimensions, incarnation, how real and measurable this form of existence actually is. Because that's what it is, the higher dimensional existence, it's a measurable level of functioning, just not perceptible with our human eyes or even our human technology. And I think even if we do advance and we are capable of maybe seeing some more things through more advanced machines, because we are going to get there over time, there's also going to be a limit to what we are able to achieve in that department. And here we have to rely on things like mythology or intuition or ancient texts that actually can contain a lot of information, especially if you look at those Vedic texts. They contain a lot of information of points of contact. The way we contact, animals daily, and we operate with them in the past. Higher dimensional forms have been contacting human beings, and as such, certain knowledge has been passed down that has been lost over time. But the Vedics, they still have scraps of that knowledge. And, for example, they locate the place of Vedic deities in what human beings call the galactic center, right? It's a measurable point in space that our scientists observe. But from a spiritual perspective, this is where the basic deities of creation exist. And I call them Vedic because this is the oldest, most realistic account of their existence that we possess. But frankly, these energies, they don't really have a correspondence to any earthly culture, right? They are just beings there. And we call them by certain names derived from the last culture that remembers having any contact with those energies and naming them or even acknowledging their awareness. But all that means that basically the knowledge that Earth has of these beings came from the Indian area. These deities actually are not Indian, they are, otherworldly. They don't have any association to any earthly culture. It's just that those primitive older cultures still have retained the most memory, the most knowledge. Because of their conservatism, it has actually proved to be a strong suit here, and because of that, they have managed to still find an awareness of that, which is right now actually being uncovered and being translated and being given to the modern world, which is, I think, I think it's for a reason, and I'm so glad to participate in that, and I'm so grateful for those who do the discovery part, because I don't speak. Sadly, my knowledge of Sanskrit is, very limited. I use it like an online dictionary, and I'm good at interpreting it. But you have to really speak the language, and there are those who are, learning it, or some of them actually have. Some of the scientists, the astrology scientists, have personal relationships with Indians. Some of them are married to Indian women, and they derive a lot of knowledge from the traditional culture of those people, and they use that knowledge to transmit their own wisdom and bring enlightenment to the Western society, which is absolutely fantastic. And again, I'm so happy to be a part of that. Anyway, I really kind of hope that this is going to be able to kind of clear your perception and understanding of how much we associate extraterrestrial things, external things, higher dimensional things, still through our ego perspective. Why? Because you cannot get rid of your ego any more than you can get rid of your sense of self in this human body. You need the ego to survive or to even incarnate, right? And so as a result, we have that collective tendency to try to bring everything down to our ego. But I really think through spirituality is about being able to not remove the ego, but transcend it. In a way, view your ego as part of a bigger whole. So in this way, you don't remove who you are, but you simply see it as a grain of sand on a very large beach next to a huge ocean. So you see yourself as part of something greater. Instead of eliminating yourself, you include and you expand. I guess it's the definition of spiritual expansion. Now, here I think it's my special gift to be able to sense this kind of things, and I kind of had it since I was a child, which is why I do what I do, because you should do what you are good at, and I was given that talent for a reason to give it to others, not to just sit with it. One of my favorite things to do as a child, which is quite honestly interesting for a kid to do that. Now that I think of it, it's kind of weird, but it makes sense given who I am and how I ended up. One of my favorite things to do as a kid, and by that I mean a very small kid, like kindergarten age, like 5, 6, was to lay down on my bed and pretend that I don't exist. And I didn't do it in a negative way. Like, it wasn't a depressing thing because, I had a lot of happy things happening to me in my childhood. So it's not like I was trying to escape bad conditions of my home for a space or something. I just enjoyed doing it before sleep. It was honestly just for fun. I would close my eyes and I would feel like I'm being lifted from my body. And I could see the whole of life on Earth happening as it would have been happening even if I wasn't there. And in a way, with that awareness of my own meaninglessness came the perspective of seeing the universe as something so much larger. And it was something that was just coming to me. I didn't really have to do anything. It was just there. And I honestly thought that it was fun to explore. In a way, it kind of felt funny, like an itch in my brain, I'm trying to actually do that right now while talking to you guys. And kind of the speaking becomes automatic, and it just feels so funny. Like, you tell yourself, okay, imagine that your life is a movie. This is a good way to sum up this exercise. Right now, imagine that, the way you feel when you really are immersed into a film or into a computer game and you feel like you disappear. Now, imagine that this life, all the conditions you have, everything that you're physically attached to, the people, whatever piece of furniture you're sitting on, whatever clothes you're wearing, imagine that all of that is not real. And then try to look at your life like you are looking at it externally from a computer game. And immediately, I honestly find this such a good way to connect with your higher self. You can see a greater intelligence behind this human incarnation, and immediately you can see that scale, that perspective that I was talking about the whole podcast. You connect to it just so instantly, at least I do. Honestly, I wonder if you guys doing that would have a different result. I wonder if you would have a different experience, and any of you commenting on that podcast, I kind of would like to hear from you. Like, if you do this exercise, what would the result be? You know, I guess maybe scary to some of you. To me, it really is not. But then again, not everyone is me, and I know that. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing different reactions of different people to see how they will pan out. And I think that actually is plenty of information for the first podcast, because I want to keep it, relatively short so that people don't get overwhelmed. And well, let me know how did you do with this exercise. And let me know in the comments how do you feel about it. And I hope that you learned something from this explanation. If anything is unclear, just let me know too, and I will touch on it in the next podcast. It was so nice talking to you, and I hope that we get as much of you as possible so that we can connect in a bigger community and, learn together and explore the mysteries of the universe together. Take care.